Hey guys, this is Mike Trolla with Qlik. As promised, here is part 4 of taking action on your data. If you've seen some of my announcements in social media, I showed you an example of how we can take the data from this Qlik Cloud Analytics app after we've analyzed it and discovered something, and then send that information over to an email message dynamically. A couple things to point out. The email recipient is hard-coded in this example. That could be passed over dynamically as well. And this is different than subscribing to a report or setting up an alert. This is just an example of integrating Qlik Cloud Analytics with backend office processes using Qlik Automate. Okay, so please review the other videos in the series to see some of the solutions and use cases that I presented prior. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to dive into the details on how this is set up. So I already have an app, and I'm going to include this app where this video is posted, basically just to give you a starting point. So I have my data loaded. I have 2 filter boxes here, category and order status. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to grab a straight table object and just grab a couple of columns. Keep in mind this video is going to be a lot longer because it's almost like a full-blown tutorial. All right, so we're going to go to our chart objects. I'm going to grab a straight table. Just position it accordingly. And I'm only going to add a few columns. Right now, we're just going to add our order ID and a product name. I could add category as well. Okay, so we have 3 columns in here right now. Let's just put order ID up front. And there we go. And we're going to call this your orders. Okay, so keep note of the name of the table and the name of the sheet as well, because those are going to come into play when we set up the automation. Let's go into our bundle and let's grab a variable input. And we're just going to name this one subject. I'm going to go to my variables, create a new variable, and we'll call it vSubject. And for the definition, we'll just say information about your order. Now we're going to assign that input box with that variable, and we'll bring that up a little bit later as well. So now I'm going to grab a button. Change the label to send. And at this point, I don't have the automation set up because we're going to set up that automation brand new. So what I'm going to do is go to my main menu here, and I'm going to right click on automation, say open link in new tab. And this will go to our automations. We're going to create a new automation, blank automation. And we'll call this one send message full build, and click create. Now, if you remember, we're going to change run mode to triggered. And at this time, I'm just going to click save. I'm going to go back to the Analytics app, click on the send button, and we're going to add an action. And from the drop-down menu named action, we're going to choose execute automation. And from the drop-down list, I'm just going to type in send in the search. And there's send message full build. We're going to include selections, that's important. And we're going to choose run mode triggered. Now we could also add a parameter here as well, and that parameter could be the vSubject. So in this case here, the key, I'm just going to call it vSubject. And then the value is going to be the name of the variable vSubject. And that's just going to pass the value of the subject input box over to the automation when we need it. Okay, so that's all we need to do for the Qlik Cloud Analytics app. We'll come back to this later when we're testing, but that's all we need to do. Before we move over to the automation, very important, click Copy Input block. So now we're at the Send Message Full Build Automation. I'm going to right-click on the canvas and choose Paste Blocks. And you'll notice we have Inputs and Apply Bookmark. Okay, so when I told you earlier to select Include Selections, that basically provides the Apply Bookmark block. And then the inputs are obviously, setting up what it needs to use within the automation. So if we click Inputs, you can see App, Bookmark, Sheet, User, and it even has our parameter vSubject. So I'm going to connect these to the Start block. So a couple things to keep in mind. Let's just save this. If you try to run it from the automation workspace, what'll happen is it's going to prompt for the inputs, and you don't have these inputs. I mean, you can start typing them in, but these inputs are going to be passed over from the Qlik Cloud Analytics app. So keep that in mind. So to test this, what you're going to want to do is go to the app and kick it off. So here we'll go into analytics mode, and I'll just click Send. And then we can go to the automation, and you can click History, and you can see it's now finished. And then you can look at the different inputs and outputs per block, if there are any errors, etc. I like to go through chronologically. And if we go to Qlik Cloud Services Apply Bookmark, you can see return true, and then you can see the bookmark ID, the app ID, the data source, etc. If we go to inputs, you can see the other information as well. And you can see there's vSubject, information about your order. So this is all processed in a manner that's going to be used within the workflow. Okay, so now comes the fun part. We're going to get the data from this app. So there's a block in Qlik Cloud Services called Get Straight Table Data. So we're going to get that block here, and I'm going to add it to Apply Bookmark. Okay, so hear me out at this point. Under normal circumstances, when you build a automation to be more modular, you can use the previous block's outputs as inputs for the next block. So for example, when we look at Apply Bookmark, you can see that the app ID is using inputs app. So if we look at inputs, you can see whatever value comes back from app, which is passed from the Qlik Sense app, it's going to then be applied to the Apply Bookmark block. The same goes for Get Straight Table. For the Get Straight Table block, you can see it needs an app ID. Now, under normal circumstances, I can go in, select Input, and after you've had some previous runs, you actually get some sample history that you could select. So here you can see there's the input, and there's the app, and that's the app ID and the bookmark. If I just choose this, we can use that as an input. But what I wanted to show you is, if you're new to this, you can also use the API and the lookup services that are available. So here, if I choose to lookup, it will show me all of the apps that are available. Now, if you remember, we're using the Send Message Full Build, and in the URL, you can actually see the app ID. It ends in 2EAC. So I'm just going to search for full, and you're going to see there's the Send Message Full Build Qlik Sense app, and you can see it ends in 2EAC. By using this approach, I can then also look up the sheet and the object. So we can do lookup again, and now it's going to show me all the sheets, and there it is, taking action on your data part 4, right? If we go back to the Qlik Sense app, that's the name of the sheet. So I can choose that. Then the object ID is going to choose the visualization object. So here we have a input, we have filter boxes, we have a straight table, and a button. So if I choose object ID, I can also do a lookup, and you're going to see it shows all those items. Now, if you remember, we named the table Your Orders. So I can go and select Your Orders, and that's the straight table, and that's the data it's going to pull out. Okay, so I wanted to bring that up because it's very important, right? We always like to introduce tips and tricks along the way, because if you're looking at pre-configured automations or workspaces that have been given to you, you might see the approach where it has this parameterized input object. And if that's the case, it might not be clear to you. So I just wanted to explain that. Okay, now that the get straight table data block is configured with our parameters, let's do a test run. So let's click Save. Let's go back to the Qlik Sense app and just click Send. And you can go back to Automations, click History, and you can see that it's running. We can click it. You can click on the chronological view if you want. And you can wait for it to finish. You can kind of page through the different objects as it's going through its different processes. And now you can see it's finished. So let's go directly to Get Straight Table, and you can see the in and then the out. And there's the 200 plus items from the straight table, which is the order IDs, category names, products, and contact names. So this is basically an array object. We're going to now parse this basically. And we're going to do that by creating variables and using some loop objects. And we will format the actual structure of the data that we want to send to the email message in an HTML table. If I go to Basic and I grab a variable block, let's connect it to Get Straight Table. We don't have any variables, so we'll have to add them. We click Manage Variables, and we're going to give it a name. So the first thing we're going to do is we want the actual column headers, the fields that are coming out of the Get Straight Table object array. So we're just going to name this column headers. And that's the name of the variable. And this is going to be of type list. And we're going to click Save. So now from the drop-down list, we can choose column headers. Now we're going to add an operation on column headers. And since it's a list, we're going to choose Merge Other List into column headers. And we need to provide a formula. And there is an operation under list functions called Get Keys. And this says get the keys field names of an object. And what's that object? Get Straight Table. And we just choose the main Get Straight Table data object. And that's it. So what we can do is we can save this. We can go into our Qlik Sense app. And let's just click Send to initiate the automation. Go back to the automation, click History. And we can go into the output block of variable column headers. And you can see now we have our column headers, order ID, category name, product names, and contact name. And that's going to be completely dynamic. So if we go back to our Qlik Sense app and we add a new column to the straight table, it will actually include that in that list. Okay, so let's go back to the automation. So the next thing we want to do is we want to grab another variable and we want to start formatting our HTML output. So in my buffer, I have some of the HTML syntax that we're going to use. So we're going to select Manage Variables. We're going to give a new name. This is going to be HTML Output, and this is going to be of type string. Select HTML Output, add an operation. This time we're going to set value of HTML Output, and I'm just going to paste in what was in my buffer, which is the beginning of the syntax to create the HTML page. And you're going to see that we end it at the opening of a table row for our T-head tag. So basically where our table header tag is going to be. So now we're going to loop through those column headers. So we select loop. And if this populates or pre-populates with the previous object, that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or that's the object you want to use. So you click it and select delete. And then from the drop-down list, you can choose formulas and other objects. This isn't a full-blown tutorial on Qlik Automate itself, but just showing you there are available selections to be made. So for this, we want to now actually loop through the column headers. So we're just going to choose variable column headers. Now in the loop for each column header, we want to append our HTML syntax to that variable. So we choose a new variable, object, and then from the list, we can choose HTML output variable, and we can append to it. So operation, append to HTML output. The value we want to choose is the loop in the item. But before we do that, we want to create the syntax in HTML, which is the opening tag for table header, which is th. And then we can click after it, and you can see item in loop, and it gives you a list of the different key value pair objects. We want to select item. In this case, our example is showing order ID, category name, product name. We just choose item. And you can see it populates with loop item. And then we just close the table header tag with /th. And that's it. So if you kind of want to see what happens there, click save. You can always grab an output object at any time and click save again. And then let's go back to the Qlik Sense app, click send, go back to the automation. And in doing so, when it's finished, you'll see the output generated here in the output section. Okay, and there's order ID, category name, product name, contact name. If we go to chronologically and we go to variable HTML output, you can actually see the HTML syntax generated. If I copy that and I go into this utility that's called HTML Online Viewer, paste that in, you can see what it looks like in HTML. Okay, pretty cool, right? All right, so let's go back to our automation. I'm just going to delete the output block. And now we want to close out our table row, our table header, and the table structure that sets up the header. So we're just going to grab another variable, append to the HTML output, selecting the variable HTML output, and then append, and then pasting in from my buffer the closing of the table row, the closing of the T head, and then the opening of the table body. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to loop through all the items in get straight table data. So here it's populated with the previous loop. We don't want that, so I click it and then click delete from the little pop-up menu. From the drop-down list, I'm going to select get straight table data. I don't have to choose any individual items here because we want to actually loop through the whole object. So I'm just going to choose output from get straight table data, and you can see it selects that particular object. And then you guessed it, we're going to start formatting the rows of the individual cell values. And we do that once again with just variables and appending to HTML output. It's that simple. And then what do you want to append? In this case, we're just going to start adding the table row, and that's all we need to add. And then for each of the items in the get straight table data, we're now going to run another loop. So it's kind of like a nested loop, or it is a nested loop. And what we're looping through in this case are going to be the items in loop 2. So once again, just delete drop down list, item in loop 2, and here are our items: order ID, category name, product name, contact name. So we want to loop through the items in loop 2. And then we want to grab the values and format them as cells inside the table. So we do that with a variable, HTML output, append. And then what we're appending is, if you're familiar with HTML syntax, a tag for a cell is TD. And then the value is basically going to be our item that's in the loop 3. And these individual objects, right? These values here. So we just select loop 3 item. And then we close the cell with TD /TD. And that's it. And then finally, we add another variable. And that variable is just going to close the row. So HTML output, append, and then open bracket /tr, and that closes the row. And then the final one is another variable at the end of loop 2, which just closes out the entire HTML page, the body, the table, all that stuff. So we append to HTML output, and we just paste, and you can see /tbody, /table, /body, /HTML. And then at this point, we have a completed HTML output object that we could use within the send mail block. But just for giggles, we're just going to use the output block, click save. We go to our Qlik Sense app. Let's just filter on pending orders, click send, go back to the automation, click on history. And there is our HTML output. I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to put it into the HTML viewer. And that is what's generated from the automation workflow. So now all there is to do left in the automation is to add in the mail block. So let's delete output. Let me search for mail. That's send mail. That's SMTP. I want to do Outlook instead. There we go. So we're going to do send mail from Outlook. My connection's already defined. 2, in this case, we're going to just hard code Donkey Kong Qlik at outlook.com. Subject is going to be our input. And if you remember, we had a vSubject. Type HTML and body, variable HTML output. We're just going to select variable HTML output. I could put a message before it. Here is your list of orders. And click save. And now we'll go back to the app, click send. Subject is information about your order. And here is our inbox for Donkey Kong Qlik. Give it a few moments. Let me refresh this too, because this has been open for a while. So I'll make sure the session is still valid. And there it is. Michael Tarallo, information about your order. And there are the pending orders. Now, once again, to show you that this is real, what we're going to do here is we're going to choose completed orders, and we're going to choose baby wear. And I'm just going to choose, I don't know, those orders there. And we'll say, hello, this is for you, and click send. Go back. Wait a few moments. There it is. Hello, this is for you. And there are all of the orders that we just selected. Alrighty, guys, I hope you stuck with me. So we are coming to the 24-minute mark. I'm going to close out this video and I'm going to create one more part, which is going to cover a recap and conclusion, and also show you how I can take this completed automation and turn it into a reusable template that then can be chosen from the list in the beginning when you create an automation. And all you have to do is plug in your app and chart object, and it will automatically work immediately without having to be built again. All right, guys, I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.